to be rude to my host back here while you're eating, but with all the flowers and good-looking plants there, I figured this is my time to do that. First of all, I like coming to Tiger Days. I've been to yours as an Attorney General candidate, you may remember, and some of you were here, I'm sure, for that. And if you haven't had it, please do have the Attorney General candidates here. Once they're nominated, if you haven't already had to come by before, because that is a very important office. And by the way, Alex Sink's official title, the way we call her, is CFO. So I'll say, I usually say Alex, but it's CFO Sink. It's kind of odd, but that's what you, that's how you take those notes down. You know. They coined that office not long ago, so it's very different. I'm going to tell you why I'm running for governor in this brief 10 minutes. I'm ready to answer any questions you have. In fact, part of why I'm running for governor and what I would like for you to see today is the transparency and the difference between my record, which is very clear, and my opponent in this primary, who's not so clear and not willing to answer questions and go to places like this, spend the time that I'm spending. So let me talk to you about why I'm running, first of all. I have a wife of 38 years named Ingrid. A few of you are better. If I couldn't be running for office, I wouldn't have served in Congress or as your Attorney General if it weren't for Ingrid. And we have 3 sons. We have 2 grandsons. We have 1 more on the way. We think it's a little girl. And this is a pretty important time for us. But in addition to that, the key element here is this race is about them. This race is about our children and our grandchildren and your children and your grandchildren, and making Florida a better place for them. It's not about me. It's about you and your children and your grandchildren, where we're going as a state. Right now, as worthy as we're hurting, we have over 1 million people unemployed. We have depended all of my lifetime, and I grew up here, we've depended on agriculture and travel and tourism as the basic industries of our state. And as your next governor, I'm going to do everything I can to promote both of them. I grew up in a cattle ranch. I understand citrus and cattle and all of the things that go into agriculture today and the research that's needed. And I'm going to support Adam Putnam. You've got a favorite son there? He's going to win. He's going to be the next Commissioner of Agriculture, from my perspective. I'm a good friend, by the way, a supporter of mine in this race. And now I will also tell you that I know how important travel and tourism is and hospitality. I want to fill every hotel room and every restaurant chair I can as governor, but we have to diversify. We've talked about it a lot. Governor Bush, when he was governor, brought us Sanford Burnham and Scripps. And by the way, Scripps is fully up and running down there in Palm Beach County. I was over there visiting the other day. But we don't have enough of that other industry for this. And I know we've got to diversify. So I have a plan that I worked out with Steve Forbes, and on April 15th announced it, to create 500,000 new jobs in Florida over the next 6 years. There are no gimmicks in this plan. It's very straightforward. It involves reducing the corporate income tax rate by 20% roughly, from 5.5% to 4.5%. It involves a tax exemption for 10 years from the corporate income tax for companies that are willing in high-tech and biotech and aerospace, certain key industries, to move their headquarters and to move their production facilities here. It involves a complete tax exemption permanently on certain sales tax for equipment needed in the high-tech, biotech, and aerospace industries that we want to lure here, and for building fiber optic out to the rural areas where it still isn't in Florida. We need all of these things. And we also need regulatory relief that goes into this package. We're not California, we're not New York, we're not New Jersey, thank goodness, but we are Florida. We're one of the most over-regulated states in the Union. You may not realize it, but we are. And so a significant portion of what this plan is about is reducing those regulatory burdens by making it sure that when somebody's going out to seek a permit, you don't have 3 or 4 or 5 different agencies sending somebody out to do all of it, having one-stop shopping in Tallahassee, and so on. And in the process, it's also, in this proposal, giving me the tools as the next governor to make these recruitment measures work, to really go out and reach for the industries that want to relocate. Florida's got a very cumbersome offering process. And last but not least on this list, we need to have meaningful, significant lawsuit or litigation reform. We've not had that, and we really need it if we're going to be competitive with Texas and Mississippi and even Georgia and Alabama. Now, having said that, what's not in that package but equally follows behind it is a need for a dramatic improvement in our public education system. And as your next governor, while that's not being talked about a lot in this campaign, it is critical. We absolutely have to do that. It is part of what we have to do for growing jobs in the future, but it's also a critical ingredient for our children and grandchildren and for us. Our public schools have come a long way. Our 4th grade reading and math test now that we have this accountability system, are up. But we're nowhere near where we need to be. We need to be up here. We're somewhere down about knee high. And that's a big challenge for the next government, in grade school all the way through the university system that we have in our state. And we need to have addressed a lot of issues that aren't being addressed in this campaign. If you have questions about them, I'll be glad to talk about them. In 10 minutes, I can't really cover them. And unfortunately, in 30-second commercials, they're not being covered. And that's water, for example, transportation, energy, tax questions, insurance. I can go on with that list, and I'm sure you know it. As your next governor, I'm prepared to lead. And that's the other part of this. Aside from policy, you can find all my policy statements up on BillMcCollum.com, the website. Over 100 pages, very specific. I'm very proud of our team. We've got a great team working policy, a lot of volunteers, a lot of people in the business community. This state needs leadership. We need somebody with the character, the integrity, the trust, and the record that you can count on to be your next governor. And that's the difference in this primary right now. That's the choice. It couldn't be clearer in the primary. I've got a proven record, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of my service in the Navy JAG Corps, in Congress. I was elected with Ronald Reagan. I was there for the tax cuts. I was there for the fall of the Berlin Wall. I was there when we had the takeover of the Congress in 1994 on the Republican side. I wrote 4 of the 10 planks in the contract with America. And I was there for the last time we balanced the budget. And I left with a balanced budget. And I'm proud of that record. I'm also proud of what I've done as your Attorney General. Our cybercrime unit is incredibly effective in this state. And just this weekend, you probably know that your sheriff, who's supporting me in this race, Grady Judd, had an opportunity to arrest a whole bunch more of these bad guys as he's been doing. We support what Grady does with that 30-person team. And we help him prosecute some of those cases because they can't all be prosecuted by your state's attorneys. And I'm proud of that. And the education program that goes with it too, where we're in all the middle schools, virtually in the state, all the high schools, with an interactive cyber safety program to teach kids how to better protect themselves. And I'm proud of the gang program we've got. And I'm also proud of the efforts that our team has made on mortgage fraud and Medicaid fraud. You know, I go after the Medicaid fraud. When Rick Scott was CEO of Columbia HCA, he and his team committed Medicaid fraud. Kind of a crazy world we live in. And then last but not least, I'm very proud of the lawsuit that 7 minutes after President Obama signed into law the health care bill, I filed a lawsuit to have it declared unconstitutional. And we're going to win that lawsuit. We're going to win that lawsuit. And I'll tell you why that's so important. It's important because of the very fundamental constitutional questions here that we're dealing with. Our state, and our nation have a real problem with this bill in 2 fronts. Number one, the founding fathers gave certain enumerated powers to the federal government. Among those were not the power to say, if you're sitting in front of your TV set doing nothing, you've got to buy an insurance policy or a product of any sort or pay a penalty. It's just not there. And it's a fundamental question of the rights of the individual versus the federal government that's at stake here. And 27% of my budget, your budget, in the state of Florida, today goes to Medicaid. Under a contract, we agreed to administer that program and pay a lot of the benefits out, as well as the federal government. But it's a federal program. And the federal government comes along in this health care bill, and they change the rules, add eligibility to an enormous eligibility, and we're going to pay billions of dollars more in our state alone without asking us. They didn't get our permission. And we states believe that violated the 10th Amendment. You probably know there are 19 states that have joined the National Federation of Independent Business and Plaintiff. We're going to have a hearing on the motion to dismiss. We should win in September. This case is going to the United States Supreme Court. And it will be the most significant decision in my lifetime with respect to states' rights and individuals versus the federal government. And last on this whole checkered list, I do support the amended Arizona immigration law. And if we want to talk about it more later in questions, I'm happy to, but I will tell you this. We don't need exactly what Arizona has, but I proposed a bill with Representative Will Snyder last week that does some significant other things for law enforcement. But above all else, it takes the good provisions of this law that say that when you make an arrest, when you stop somebody for another crime, and you have a reasonable suspicion they're illegal, you as a police officer must check with the Homeland Security, Immigration Services to find out if that person is legal or not. By the way, they're authorized to do that today in Florida. Most of them do it, but darn well they should be doing it if they're not. And requiring them to do that makes every bit of sense. The original Arizona law didn't say it that way, but when it was amended it did. And it doesn't have profiling in it, racial profiling, or any of those other features. In fact, the bill that Snyder worked on that I support makes sure we don't ever do that and does a lot of other good things. So that's a brief potpourri to give you an idea of what I'm proud of in my record. And I say this is important because all we know about Rick Scott's what he's telling you in his slick TV ads and his dubious background at Columbia HCA. I know and you know that his company committed the greatest, most massive fraud against senior citizens and veterans in U.S. history in terms of Medicare, a rip-off of taxpayers. He was fired after they raided 50 of his hospitals. He walked away with $300 billion. That's the basis of his wealth. And now he's running for governor. And he's spending, I think, and now the total number of dollars looks like it's going to be $50 million of his own money this week. So by the end of this week, in this race to try to become governor. Telling stories about me that aren't true, telling things, taking my quotes out of context, and so forth. So what we know about him is that. And we also know that it's a pattern, because currently, at least it appears that Solanic, his current company, has been charged, at least by several of the doctors that work there, with the similar type of fraud of Medicare and Medicaid that was committed by Columbia HCA. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I do know that he's not answering the questions, that he's not willing to release the deposition in that case. That was put in the paper the other day, where he took his depo 6 days before he filed to run for governor. And those are the kind of questions people are asking. Who is Rick Scott, and why does he want to be governor? You know my record. You know I'm a Ronald Reagan conservative, and you know what I'm going to be like when I'm governor. We're going to lead this state. We need a governor focused on this state who knows Florida issues, and that's the kind of governor I'll be. Thank you very much for letting me come. We're going to win this election. Thank you.